Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Co-Innovation Hub Partner Talk series. I'm super excited today to have here with us Sebastián Hernandez, who is the managing director of this very interesting accelerator called Orion Startups, which is based in Mexico, but as we'll hear shortly, has a much broader reach than just Mexico. So welcome, Sebastián. Can I just ask you maybe to introduce us to Orion Startups? Just give us a bit of a overview of, where you are, what you're doing, and then we take it from there.
Sure thing. First of all, hello all, federal viewers. So Orion Startups, we are a venture capital firm, as a matter of fact. It's very interesting to actually kind of try to define it because what we are very good at is at accelerating startups. But to actually have startups to accelerate, you have to work as a venture capital firm. So what we managed to do is that with a very specified team of people, we have a whole process of ensuring that the startups we select, because we are in the very early stage part of the process. So we sometimes invest in startups that are not even selling. So that's something very interesting. So it's very high risk, right? So what we need to do is to actually bring them to that point of being possibly a little bit risk, but some kind of sales, some kind of validation that will actually help them to raise the next round. We are sector agnostic. We like high tech, so we typically invest in software as a service business models, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, biotechnology, and we focus more on the founder and the fact that she could do what she's planning to do, that instead the startup, that technology and stuff like that. Obviously, we take it into account, but at this early stage, we have to look at the founder. That's our main focus. After we select them, we run them through an acceleration process. It's a 6-month process. It's a little bit atypical of the 4-month, 3-month typical process. And the reason why is that we are heavy personalized. That's one of the things. And the second one is that we are very interested in actually bring them to be able to raise another fund in the next 6 months out of the accelerator. So that's why we have to do the things possibly a little bit slower, as you might think, but it's more efficient that way because we got to plan with them and we got to actually execute with them. And after they graduate, some of them go after a fund, some of it don't. But what we do is that we keep them on a rolling basis, just help them. And we do it. We have this, we call it the anti-program, right? It's not a program. It's nothing structured, but we keep that communication. We keep the help. And what we do is to actually focus on the goals they have as a startup. And we try to actually do things. So if there's something that they are not able to do because it's not their experience or it's not their abilities and we have them in-house, we go ahead and do it. We're very hands-on. So that's more or less what we do. So far, we have invested in 29 startups. We usually invest tickets of $30,000 for from 2 to a 10% cap after post money. And an average of the 29 startups, we have around 7.8% of equity. And this is our first fund. We actually are raising the second fund, which is going to be a little bit bigger ticket and follow-on rounds to actually help them do this anti-program, to help them not only have the, let's call it the intelligence or the more hands in their team, but also the cash to accomplish their goals.
And these 29 startups you've invested in, how you mentioned obviously focus on early stage. How early stage are they? So is this their seed investment? Is it what sort of stage, or also in terms of their product?
Actually, it's earlier than seed. We consider ourselves as an angel pre-seed round. Right. This is something very interesting to talk about, and I was just talking it to some guy in the ecosystem here in Mexico. And the thing is that when you think about seed or pre-seed, you focus on the typical rounds in the US, right? Because it's like the benchmark. Sadly, in Mexico and all in LATAM, and most of the regions in which we are specified, pre-seed is very, very small.
Not
So
only in
it's
Mexico.
yeah, it's
Say.
most of the regions but the US, right?
Exactly.
And we are specified in that pre-seed. So our dollar tickets, they are focused to bring up sales or to even create sales. So we have invested in startups that only have like a lab validated product, and
Right.
we trust them. We trust their marketing and sales process and validation process, trust in the founders, and then we invest in them and allow them with our tools to go to those sales and to actually finish validating. One of the startups in which this has happened is one of the startups which I most like, and it's a biotech startup. And when they entered Orion startups, they were actually just have sold something around $10,000 in just validation sales. Product was not good looking. Product was very efficient, but not good looking. There was no good process of sales. It was just the product. By the way, both founders, they are biotech majors, so they are very, very in the tech side, right? Right now, they closed last year with $2 million. We invested in them 2 years ago, so they bring up sales from zero to, well, from 10,000 to 800,000 last year, and to this year they sold 2 million. So it's going pretty good. But then we have the other side of the deal, in which we have also some stake in another startup, and they were already rolling their sales. So we have a very small stake in there. We completed a round. We are now leaders in that round. So it's very variable, but our typical ticket goes to pre-seed stage.
And in terms, you were telling me before we started the call that you started with like a regional focus, then national, then LATAM, then so
yeah.
I mean, of this, I guess the main focus is still probably Mexican startups, or are you getting applications from all over?
We get applications from all over the world. What happens is we are trying to bring more startups from Latin America, not just Mexico. But the thing is that it's pretty interesting to have our processes, our selection processes. They apply through a website. Then there's a first filter, which is a digital filter. There's no contact, just to see if the thesis fits. And then we have interviews. Most of the startups from Latin America, when we get to the interviews, it's kind of funny because there's some sort of misinformation sometimes. So that's the first deal, things in the deal, and that's the reason why we pass on the startup. But that brings us to that. Probably we have an average of 200 startups per batch that apply, and we select from 4 to 8. So from those 200, our thesis just automatically takes out around half, and from those 100, probably 50% again, they're going to be actually suitable for our investment committee. Right. So what happens here is that to have 50 startups from all over the world, if you take the rest of the world and just focus on LATAM, is going to be probably 22 and 80% of the rest of the world. So it's not enough. And well, this is something that we're trying to kind of change, because there are ways to change it. But the role of a venture capital firm towards our investors is to actually give them financial returns, right? Right. So we got to have the right numbers. We got to have the right people on those numbers, which I mean founders, to actually have a good decision on the investment. That's kind of the hard and cold part of investment, but it is how it is, and it's hard to change. We're trying to, but it's hard to.
And in terms, something that might be interesting actually for people listening is in terms of the let's say the Mexican, without expanding to LATAM, the ecosystem there. I know there are some great universities. To what extent can you talk us a bit about your network, your ecosystem in Mexico? To what extent you work also with universities or with other partners? That might be interesting to sure. Touch upon.
Sure. I'll keep it like in 3 main points. The first one is school. let's call it university and high tech people, it's funny to actually, when someone is not from the country and then comes into the country and take a chance to actually meet a lot of high technical people and high educated people. It's very interesting because it's sometimes, and this is all LATAM, sometimes it's not figured out that way, right? So that's one thing. It's a big wave of new graduate or just graduated people that are, and another thing, they are super intelligent people, very well educated, and they want to do things. So there's a generational shift there, very
I
important.
confirm we have our co-founder is Mexican, and we have one of our developers is Mexican, super smart, so I can confirm that.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and this is for all LATAM. You get those people from all of the countries in Latin America, and then we have also the corporates part. There has been for possibly 3 years now, 4 years maybe, that corporates started to actually put a real interest in open innovation. And that's something very interesting to imagine, because there's a saying that in corporates that if you keep doing what you're doing, there's someone who's going to do it better, right? So they want to be that someone, and they just realized that 4 years ago, if I can imagine. And with this, it comes a bunch of things around it. They are hiring people to launch their own environment of innovation within the corporate. They're investing in startups. They are actually, some of them, they are opening their venture capital firms or arms. It's a lot of things happening, and that's very, very interesting for the whole ecosystem. And then on the third part, we have more investors interested in actually investing in high risk businesses. Most of the first years of raising, the first months, I'm sorry, of raising Fund One, it was some sort of education raising. So investors in I would say whole Mexico, but there are some exceptions in Mexico City, Monterrey, and Guadalajara. They want to invest in physical things like the brick and mortar. They want to invest in something they can see, they can touch. And when you invest in technologies, like, yeah, what am I investing in, right? So it was very educational. That mindset has changed. Right now, they are understanding the game. They're knowing that their investment might be a good investment in real estate, but hey, let's have 20% of that and put it into high risk. It's going to be okay, right? And that's it has the ball rolling. And these three main actors, like the universities and people, and then we have corporates and more venture capital or more investment as a whole. They are switching also to understand that none of them are the center of the environment or the ecosystem, the innovation ecosystem. The center is the founder. And that's something that it's obvious when you hear it, right? It's duh. I mean, that's why it exists. The industry exists, but all of them were in this mindset in which, I mean, not all of them, but some. I would say most of the people, they were very, let's call it, a good way of egocentric. Like, they wanted to do things because of their benefits, but they are starting to see the benefits that are going to undergo the whole own interests and bring, let's call it, the region, that whatever, to a better place, and that's better for everyone.
Yeah.
So this is the same, the next shift that we are experiencing now. Then we have, for example, communities here in Chihuahua. We're based out of Chihuahua, north part of Mexico. There's this association which is called Chihuahua Futura, that is government, but it's startups and it's corporates and it's universities that are actually working together to bring the ecosystem to the next level. And that a year ago didn't exist, right? And that's because of the mindset. It's a new mindset. If some of them win, all of them win. So that's what I have been seeing in Mexico right now.
Oh, that's very interesting. That's very interesting. And I think we're seeing this not only in Mexico, I was telling you one of the things, the reason we're having these talks is also then to connect corporates with innovation ecosystem. So that's very, very interesting to hear. I know we're running a bit over time, but it would be interesting maybe to have like from your view, what you're seeing now in the market in terms of the technology trends, or things that are particularly hot for you in terms of investment opportunities. If you don't mind touching upon that, that would be very interesting actually to hear.
Sure. So I think I have two in mind, which I have seen that since we started investing. We didn't start investing in biotech from year one. We started investing then after a couple of years. So one of them is biotechnology. We are in the verge of an actual huge change in the way food is produced, medicine is treated. Patients are actually going to be more willing to go new technologies and new medicines instead of the others that are having more secondary effects or whatever. New ways of growing our food, new ways of actually transporting our food. There's a lot of things happening in the biotech sector. We have some startups in the biotech, and one of them has always said that biotechnology is a way of programming the world. And that's amazing, because that's what it is. So you are actually editing genes, or you are actually kind of changing patterns in people's life and how they treat their food, how they eat their food, what food are they eating. So it's actually their coding life, right? And biotech is going to be very huge. And yesterday I was seeing this chart from Carta Equity, a very good chart, amazing information, and it was the most of the investment in the US by average size of ticket went to biotech startups. So it's something that it's not only happening in Mexico, Latin America, or underrepresented regions, but like the big boys, they're looking at that as well. And the other one is, and I think that's since ChatGPT launched, millions of people have used it, and this has allowed us to actually have the next level of our artificial intelligence to actually have some natural language processing as it should be, and not how it was before ChatGPT. And this is something that's going to happen and actually change the way people as well work, live. I've used it. The servers are down now, but I used it for around 2 weeks. I stopped using Google, like, at all. I just chatted with this artificial intelligence, and it changed the way it went. I started seeing videos on how to do my work more efficient. There's a secret. I send around 3 days worth of emails directly from ChatGPT. Like, hey, I want to send an email about that. Here it is, copy, paste, go. And it worked. And it's pretty interesting, because it's going to change the way every single industry works, the way how we actually treat, how we communicate, what do we study, right? What major are we going to be? The artificial intelligence, actually ChatGPT, I read the news that it was taken out of, like, the permits were revoked from all, I can't remember if it were middle, high, or high schools in New York State, because you can write essays with that thing, right? So we have to level up. And it's very interesting because of the mega trend. And the difference between a trend and a mega trend is a mega trend is going to change how we actually, it's going to change our behavior. This level of AI and this level of biotech are going to change our behavior. So that's where we're tapping into for our next fund and for the things that we are actually starting to look at.
No, very interesting. I totally agree. It's a massive shift in which will touch pretty much everything. So it's very exciting. Sebastian, when is your next maybe information for startups who are interested in applying? When is your next what are your key dates in terms of your next batch of applications, and for your, I mean, if you have like or it's an ongoing application process for your investment?
When the funds are open, it's ongoing. Right now, we don't have any funds open, so
Okay.
we stopped investing from Fund 1, and
You're
we will
raising
start
your-
investing from Fund 2 from May this year.
Okay.
Nevertheless, the applications are actually ongoing. On a rolling basis, we keep receiving startups just to have them on the loop, right? So if you go over to orionstartups.com, you can watch the apply here button, and that would take you to an F6S and do all the process, right? But we are not going to be investing, and this is something that has to be very clear, because it's the best to be that clear for startups raising. We are not going to be investing until after May this year.
Okay. Great. Okay. No, thanks a lot, Sebastian. It was very insightful. Thanks for your time. And we'll.
I love to be here.
Hopefully, we can be in touch and share some opportunities of corporates wanting to tap into your ecosystem. Very interesting. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Carlo, and very, very, I'm loving being here.